All right, we're good. Cameron Vandenberg, welcome to the podcast, mate. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Brett? Good to be back on swimming land.
Yeah. It's been a while, man. I haven't seen much of you. What have you been up to these days?
Yeah, just busy. I mean, I've sort of left the swimming world in terms of I'm in the financial world, so changed career, but still keeping fit, swimming 3 times a week. Just that's sort of the meditation and something that I love. So it's always nice to go back and like anchor my week, anchor my thoughts on that. So I'm sort of still there in spirit and loving the sport, but not involved in it in terms of like coaching or obviously competing anymore.
Yeah. No, you're based in London now, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. What are you doing over there exactly?
So I'm a portfolio manager at a company called Millennium.
Hmm.
So we manage. Well, we're obviously we're well, shall we say my strategy is a commodity base. So I'm a commodities trader.
Right.
So obviously in this sort of point in time, it's been quite interesting because there's a lot of things that are going on, of course, with the Russian war and the invasion, and it's quite a volatile time. So you're trying to manage that at the same time, and be considerate, obviously, because it's such a difficult sort of humanitarian issue. So it's difficult to manage, and yeah, you can sort of you obviously following it so closely, and it's difficult because it can take quite a personal toll on you at the same time. But it is your job, obviously, as well to manage and make money off of it. So it's been interesting.
I mean, I've heard that can be as stressful or more than kind of being an Olympic swimmer at times, and it's super competitive from what I understand too. So, what exactly is commodities for those who is stupid like me?
Well, commodities trading is effectively you're buying, something like oil, where
Mm,
there's somebody that produces oil, and then there's somebody that needs oil. So a refiner would buy oil. You'd have a country like Saudi Arabia, where they produce oil, and they, you match the two. So what we do as speculators, we effectively try and arbitrage and make money off the discrepancies in the market. So when we
mm,
think that in a time like now, when there's war, likely prices are going to go up because you're paying a geopolitical premium on top of the barrel. So, if you had gone long or bought a whole bunch of oil, you'd obviously be able to sell it in a forward market at a higher rate.
mm.
So that's just sort of one example, but there's a lot of different things where we might look at the value of oil in one part of the world and the value of oil in another part of the world, and you can then make money off the differential between the two. And then you cross over into many other different products, like any form of metal, any form of petroleum, obviously gasoline, diesel as well. And then we trade things like emissions, with global warming. Obviously, that's also quite a hot topic. So there's emission credits that people have to buy when you get a permit to actually emit CO2. That also becomes something that you can trade around and try and again sort of speculate and see what the market is doing. So it's very interesting for me in terms of I've always been very interested in like the world and geopolitics, and so it's fun because you get to obviously learn a lot about the world, and my job is kind of reading and being interesting or being interested in different things.
Mm.
So yeah, it's and then the end of the day, I think the enjoyment for me a lot is that it's very objective, just like swimming is. So you have a profit and loss at the end of every day. You're right or you're wrong. It's measured just like swimming is, and if you put the work in, you will reap the benefits. So I think a lot of the cross principles from that perspective are very well have enabled me to transition very well. And yeah, I mean it's something that I love at the moment. It's obviously not comparable to swimming in that sense, but it's another way that I can use my skill set into something that I'm doing now.
I could see that as you're talking, I could kind of see where your skill would fit into something like that. But I also see that in swimming as a high level performer as well, like yourself, confidence comes from certainty almost. Like the daily trainings that you're putting in and the work that you're putting in builds a certainty so that when you stand behind the block, this is what's going to happen within a range of a very close range. So as you're talking about the commodities, it sounds the volatility to me sounds like there's a lot of uncertainty. So how do you build confidence in this market?
It's very similar to swimming. I agree in terms that it's a series of small inputs along the way that when you string them together, it can lead to a big performance or outcome. So, in commodities trading, there might be a period where for a long time, there's nothing really happening. And if you're not doing the work in that time, when you get to the big movement or you get to the big opportunity, you won't either A, be aware of it, or B, you won't be prepared to take advantage. So the way that I try and see it as well is just I structure my day very similar to kind of training, where I get up, I have certain different things that I do that I look at, like I just tick them off the box. There's certain days in the week that I do more intense sessions in work and others, because I also kind of find that I need to be able to kind of have fresh eyes to look at things sometimes, where if you're immersed in so much information all the time, there's a lot of noise and you miss the signal. And so, coming back to that swimming schedule, I'm able to sort of systematically get through certain things that I know are important that I have to do, and then certain, days where, where you're doing a big block of work and you kind of try and switch off, and you're, you try not to immerse yourself in too much information. So, from that perspective, I think, anything in life, swimming is amazing, because if you can try and apply that same principle, you can achieve something, because it's just that sort of discipline, reliability, consistency, which leads to ultimately to results.
Yeah, I've got some questions based on that. It's a tough transition usually for swimmers. A lot of swimmers get to the end of their career, especially ones who've had the kind of longevity and success that you've had at the highest level, World Championship, Olympic Games, multiple. They get to a point where they don't know what to do after swimming. How were you able to figure out where you wanted to go with your life? It sounds to me like you were setting this up way before your swimming career came to an end.
I did, yeah. 2016 Olympics. I kind of sat down afterwards, got silver, and I was sort of trying to project my life, forward in 8 years' time. Where would I be? What would I be doing? I'm obviously getting older. The body's sort of, not able to get up and do the same sets that I could used to do when I was, say, 24. So, when I'm 32, when I'm, 36, what am I going to feel like? What am I going to be realistically able to achieve? So, from the swimming perspective, I didn't feel confident enough that I was going to get there, A. But B, also, I was very happy that I, sort of achieved everything that I had set out to do in the swimming world. And that sort of was the time then that I gave myself like a 2-year period where I started looking, at different other things. I'd actually originally got into a marketing role, where I thought, sort of, okay, let me not stray too far away from my sport. So I did a sports sponsorship company, and set that up in Cape Town, which, living in Cape Town is an amazing place. And I think I had 2 years of such an amazing experience, of life, if I can say, especially also coming from, something you sacrifice so much, that you almost don't have this kind of childhood to a certain degree. Your friends are all off, obviously, at university, and having a really good time. And so I kind of had a 2-year period in Cape Town where I would say that I was, again, like I said, I was transitioning. I was still swimming, obviously, but not as seriously as what I was before, but also enjoying life a bit. And I got to the point where, also I realized that, okay, this sort of sports sponsorship marketing wasn't necessarily for me. I missed that, like I said, that objectivity and competitiveness. And in the interim, and kind of looking at what I was always doing in life, when I was about 16 years old, I started playing these paper portfolios. So it's like where they give you sort of virtual money and you start trading. And I'd won that 2 years in South Africa on this like schools challenge. Started trading some of that money already. And then obviously from swimming, I'd earned a bit of money, and was able to sort of invest 90% with the professional, and I'd kept 10%, and I was doing it myself. So from that perspective, it was actually pretty awesome, because it was something that I knew that I loved, and I was obviously kind of also doing in the meantime. And then I moved, came over to London, spoke to a guy that I know quite well, Pierre Underon, who was the firm that I was at before, and very kindly offered me a position at his fund, and was there for 2 years, and was an analyst for 2 years. I was a portfolio manager for 1 year, and then I've just moved over now to Millennium.
Wow, that's incredible, man, and that's a great transition story too. And I guess if you had advice for swimmers, kind of in your position now, like we're coming, well, it's about a couple of years out of Paris, but then Paris is going to come here soon, and then there's going to be a whole new crop of people that are thinking that their time is up, or it should be, kind of thing, or maybe even a situation like you where they're preparing 2 years down the road. What would be your best advice to swimmers like that these days?
Yeah, my best advice I always tell people is yeah, project yourself sort of 4 or 5 years in the future, and be realistic with yourself and see, like what is going to make you happy, where do you want to be, where do you see yourself. And it takes a lot of mental courage to be able to say, okay, I've kind of come so far on this mountain, almost like it's like you've climbed to the top of Kilimanjaro. You can't go any further. Like, where do you go? And now you got to climb all the way back down and sort of start again. And I'm climbing this other mountain, but I knew, that's what I say, when you stand up at the top of that mountain, where do you want to be? And then work away. You work a plan. It's something that you've done obviously from swimming. You know how to work in a 4-year cycle. Work in a 4-year cycle, or 3 years or 2 years or whatever you might need. Or if you don't know what you want to do, start giving yourself the room to explore. Whether it might be internships, might be taking a small job, reading about a career, going into that industry, speak to industry professionals, and see if it's something that you want to actually do. So just expose yourself to the ideas of what is possible, because I think the worst scenario is when you are forced to retire, and then you're forced into something that it's the only option at the time, and then you're kind of not happy. And
Right.
so the real question obviously always comes down to, what is it that will make you happy? And then after that, how can you find a career in that happiness realm that you can then excel in? Because again, like, you're not going to do well if you don't enjoy it. We all know that from swimming. It's such a tough sport, but if you love what you're doing, you're gonna get up with a smile on your face and put the hard work in. You're gonna excel.
Yeah, but also I'd say on the flip side of that is when you're in a position like you were, the mentality is I'm the best and I've got to be all in physically, mentally, emotionally, all of that. So that when you start to project out maybe a little bit, 2 years, is that at all taking away from being all in as a professional athlete, thinking of yourself as the best, wanting to stay at that level? Is it like what I'm saying? Is it a half in, half out situation, or can you balance it still where you can maintain that mentality of being number one?
It definitely does take away, I would 100% say, but unfortunately, the realism of life is that we don't all have the luxury to be able to say, I've made enough money, and or whatever it might be, and or I've got the support base that I can literally just end my career from one day and have a cushion of 2 3 years, and whatever happens in that point, it doesn't
Right.
matter. But if you have a family, you have responsibilities, you might not have the income or the cushion. It's something that unfortunately you have to do, and
Right.
that's why I say it takes a lot of courage to do that. And B, it takes a lot of courage as well to to go and sit as you're the absolute best in the world at something, and now you go and sit with someone that's like 10 years younger than you, and they're teaching you, like, you're
Mm,
so humbled.
mm.
um, and they don't care that you're an Olympic champion, because in that specific moment, or in that industry, or in your responsibility right there, it doesn't matter.
Right. Right.
So the delayment of that, obviously, like we said, it's if you have the luxury of it, not, if you have the luxury, but I don't think you do. And I think a good way to kind of discuss of how you can cushion that period is, if you look at my performance from 2016, I kind of, on the longer sort of, I cut down my training to a certain degree, and my hundreds obviously did sacrifice a bit. The performance wasn't exactly there. The 50s were still exceptionally good. I obviously came from a sprinting side, went up to the 100 side, and then was sort of able to come back down. So I think also, if you're an older athlete, you're able to rely on the muscle memory, and if you have a good conversation and you plan your sessions quite well. To give you a good example, the last, 2018, I was doing, I was swimming 3 times a week, gymming 3 times a week. I still went on to Commonwealth Games, got gold there with Peaty, got bronze in the 100, got double gold at World Champs in Shenzhen in December. So it's a possibility to do it, obviously,
Mm.
but that was kind of, I was pushing the limit. Like, I wasn't going, and the body was sore. You get up, and at the end of, so remember the end of racing in China, in Shenzhen, the body was hurting. It was not the same as what it used to be. So I say it's a trade-off, but if you're looking to do this, I think it's something that you unfortunately need to do, or you need to look at.
We individualize training in the pool, so why not individualize your nutrition? Erica Biney of Biney Wellness Building will help you and your swimmers get exactly what each athlete needs through genetic testing and personalized nutrition plans. So stop guessing what you should and shouldn't be putting into your body. Athletes within a few weeks have noticed they're recovering faster because they're fueling their body with what they need and staying away from what their body hates. Erica understands swimming. She gets it. She's worked with over 20 Olympians, including the fastest man in the world, Caleb Dressel. Group discounts are available, so go to Biney Wellness Building and get in touch with Erica today. That's Biney, Beine, wellnessbuilding.net. Yeah, you said something interesting there about, starting over again, kind of having someone 10 years younger than you, mentoring you or talking to you about what the situation is in the new industry. I saw an interview with Grant Hackett recently, good friend of mine. You know Hackey really well, obviously, where he said, he went from being an Olympic champion to going into the business arena, kind of like what you're doing. And his mentality was, instead of thinking the Olympic champion's coming down to business and I'm going to dominate this field, his mentality was, I'm going to be that 15-year-old again who was starting over as had hopes and dreams, and all he really had was his work ethic at 15. This is who I am, this is what I believe in, this is what I stand for. And his work ethic got him to the point over many years to ultimately become an Olympic champion. And that's kind of the mentality he took into business. Is that something similar with you?
Yeah, it's definitely. I think the way that I can kind of portray that out as well, and I'll never forget it, is that started racing internationally about 17, 18, and I was born in '88, and I'd race these guys like Oleg Lizagor and Kitajima and Brendan Hansen, and they were born in like 78, and I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are so old, like I'm so young. And obviously as the time went on, I started racing other guys that were 85, 83, then it became 88, and then all of a sudden there was like this 99, 90, 98 last part of my career, racing guys who were born in 2000, and I was like, oh man, I'm that guy. I'm the old guy now. So it is kind of the same idea exactly,
Yeah.
where you're heading into this new industry, and I just see myself as this young guy, and it's the beauty in that obviously is that you can ask these really dumb questions because you're brand new in the industry that you can't ask when you're 10 years in. And everything is just obviously interesting because you don't know everything. Around every corner there's something interesting or someone new to learn, someone new to speak to. And the best thing that I found is that people are, I think, coming from my own experience, I think sometimes you look up at guys that might have achieved something, they might be Olympic champion, and people are scared to talk to them and just ask sort of a question or do an introduction. And from my perspective, I never felt like I was that guy, or anyone that I had spoken to, or any of the Olympic champions that I know are those people. If anyone ever had a question or wanted some advice, they were always more than willing to give that. And that's the same way that I now look at this industry, where I'll just cold email or call people that are maybe legends in trading world, and I'll just ask them, and 9 out of 10 times they pick up the phone and they'll say either, hey, I'm too busy right now, but and they'll get back to you, or very open and honest for a conversation and a chat. So it's very much like that, if you're willing to have that open mindset and not think that you're now, like I said, the Olympic champion coming, and everyone is going to run after you.
Yeah. Well, just getting back to the swimming real quick, you did mention just a minute ago before we got on air about the funny story that happened to you just recently. I mean, you've stepped back from the sport a little bit, but you said you were on the pool deck the other day and told me something that was pretty funny. Tell us about that again.
Yeah, so I went out to the Olympic Park the one day because I wanted to go and have a look at obviously the Olympic pool. So, and they were having a competition on, and the security guard wouldn't let me into the pool because it's sorry, you don't have an accreditation. So fair and just. And all these all these like kids that were swimming, they some of them started to recognize me, and then they all started like kind of running over and trying to get a photo. And then the security guard, like, he doesn't know what's going on, and should he let me in? And and then everyone's like, well, this guy's Olympic champion, he won gold in this pool. And the security's like, but he doesn't have a tag, like, what must I do? So it was actually quite funny. And in the end, one of the referees had come over and like let me in. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to have a swim that day. I've been back, at another time and had a couple swims, but it's just kind of a funny situation where you're not able to sort of get into the pool these days sometimes on certain different days.
Well, it's understandable that you have pulled back, but how far have you pulled back? Do you stay in contact with swimming at all? I mean, are you watching any of the championships, or did you just remove yourself completely from results?
I think I removed probably about for a year, and but then this last year and a half, I've actually really got into it again. Following a lot, just down to the point of I think that I'd start to see these names that I don't even know who they are. Like
Right.
these young girls and young boys, and it was almost to the point of view I was like, I felt out of touch with the sport. So, and that was really sad because it's something that I really genuinely do love, and I've been involved for so long, and it would be a pity to throw that away. So I did start reading a lot up again, obviously, and following sort of from the like semi-final through to the final, obviously, of course, on the breaststroke side, and all the way through to the other different strokes. But it's something, I mean, I still swim 3 to 4 times a week. It's just it's the sport obviously is it's something where you can obviously just take yourself away from the stresses of whatever it might be in the life. You don't have the phone with you, you don't do anything, you're alone, and it's like I love that time just being
Yeah.
sort of free and floating.
Yeah. Mate, when I'm doing a little bit of research on you and breaststroke to me is a little bit like freestyle, where it's in the last 20 years, it's kind of stacked with legends. Like if I go down some of these names, Brendan Hansen, Christian Springer, Brenton Rickard, Kid Jim, obviously yourself, Adam Peaty. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's just legends in breaststroke. It's similar to freestyle. If I think about freestyle in the last 20, 30 years, and the list goes on. Stroke butterfly to me is there's a couple of people at the top, obviously, and it's almost like being handed down to the next person. Like, all right, here's the butterfly for the 5 years, and then it's gonna go to this person. But breaststroke is just jam packed. Did it seem that way to you at the time? Like every time you raced, it seems like there's 5 or 6 guys that could legitimately win the race, or they're all big names. Am I interpreting that correctly?
I think yeah. I mean, obviously it was a stacked field. To you, it's always very competitive, and you're obviously worried about all the different guys. But in my mind, I mean, it's probably an arrogant thing to say, but obviously, when I was racing, I always felt like I was the only guy, and it was my pool. Good thing to have in terms of being confident enough to not give your energy away to other people. Be confident enough to obviously sort of give the best performance that you have, and feel emboldened, and obviously feel sort of so proud, well, not proud, but yeah, I can say like sort of strong to give obviously the best, give it all that you can. And then on the flip side, in the training, sort of feel that you are the underdog, and that you need to come up, and that you need to prove yourself, and you need to always watch your back where there's someone else is. So I think, yeah, it's and I'm sure a lot of great stars feel the same way, that you have to have that sort of overconfidence when you get there, and be able to pull it off. But I guess, yeah, kind of.
That's interesting. I want to dig into that just for a second, because it's super interesting to me, because I'm a coach, and I'm we debate this all the time. Is a mentality like that something that is innate, or is it something that can be taught over time? Is it something that can be developed, or is it just something that you have naturally? So from your perspective, were you born with this, or was this something that you felt like you did develop?
I think my like it's I think it's something that you are able to teach through confidence and through like repetition. And the way that I kind of would explain it to you is that I would go, for instance, and do training camps with, let's say, someone like a Marco Koch. And Marco is an absolute animal, man. This guy's a beast in training, and he would completely smash me. And I would get an amazing, 2-week camp out of it. But at the end of the 2-week camp, my morale would be quite broken because, you know, like in my mind, I'm the best guy in the world, and
Mm.
now this guy's like just handing me every second like 100 meters. He's just laying it on, and he can just go for days. So what I would do is I like to train in an environment where I was sort of more the top dog, and that really would build up my confidence and allow me to have this sort of self motivation or self feeling that I was I was the best in the world. And it was always that in that environment. So that's why I say, like, in season I wasn't the best racer and trainer, but when I would actually be in a racing environment, I always felt, because I was in this coming from the training environment on my own or on a group that people were beating me, that I had this real confidence ability to be able to perform very well. And that transferred to allow me to almost kind of have these not if I could say out of body experiences, but you were able to like really elevate my performance past a certain level.
Cameron, let me ask you a question on that. When would that switch, that mentality, like you say, obviously on race day, you have this mentality that I'm unbeatable. But in the lead up to race day, let's say at the Olympic Village, you get to the Olympic Village 5 days before. Are you having doubts still then, or not doubts? But I mean, you have this self-talk, right? This talk that tells you. But when does the switch happen for you? Obviously, on race day, the self-talk is I'm the best, and there's nothing that's breaking that.
Yeah,
How far out does that happen for you? Does that happen
no, it
days out, weeks out, whatever?
like on race day morning, on heats on the morning, right
So
until
you
the night
wake up
before.
that day. Okay.
You're literally shaving the night before, and you are, you know, am I prepared? Am I, you don't let the doubts obviously kick in too hard and sort of let them, to the certain point of be the detriment your performance. So, you, you know, early on in my career, I did have some of those times where I bled too much energy because I was thinking too much about that. But if you have it inside, and it's like a, you can feel it almost on your chest. There's like this kind of pressure, but you use it in a good way. So that would kind of almost tell my body like I was ready, gearing up for war. We were getting ready, like I'm going to battle tomorrow. And it wasn't the overconfidence at that point. It was this mechanism, like I say, that my body would almost go into a super taper, if I could sort of try and put it at that point. And my taper was always incredible in terms of I would always listen to my body very well. And that's something that you learn over time. I knew exactly what I needed on the day, or on the week before, or on 2 days before, or 3 days before. And we'd be making, no taper was ever the same. It was always a bit of an adjustment, and as you got older, you adjusted things. But that morning of that, you get up and you get to the pools, that was the time that it would just like switch. And it was the funnest times, man. Like, I had the most fun racing, getting out there, just having it out with some of the best guys in the world. Like, I mean, what better, like, what more can you ask? Like, that's what I miss. That's what I miss the most, to be honest.
Tell me about that. When you do feel that feeling, I mean, obviously you've won multiple world championships, Olympic games, things like this. So on those particular instances, when you do have that win, reflecting back, hours before that, you have this kind of arrogance, like you say, and look, I've felt this too. Believe me, I'm kind of, I'm switched on with what you're saying here, so I get it. On race day, you do have this arrogance kind of thing, but how do you balance it so that it's not an over confidence, over arrogance, but you've got to have that feeling of being unbeatable? You know what I'm saying with that?
I understand. I think the way that I think I can explain it is that you stay in your lane. And by that, you're not going in with arrogance that I'm going to beat everyone else, and your energy is focused on them.
Right,
The energy is focused on your lane, on you. And in my mind, I was there to race, and I was there at the World Championships, and everyone else in the lane was just there for the ride, kind
right,
of thing. And so didn't matter to me if somebody was in my semifinal or not, because
right.
I was there doing my thing at the best of my ability, with the most amount of confidence that I had in my ability at that time. And as I said, it didn't matter where I was placed, in which seed I was in, or whatever. And I think, you know, it can come down to, are you, you know, a tactical racer, maybe like a Chad de Clos, where he is gauging with the field in multiple different events, and you know, it's kind of like a marathon, and you're, you know, it's very tactical, obviously. Whereas if you're a breaststroker, you've got, you know, 2 events, 50 and 100 meters, and they're only one event on a day, and you go in, and you know, you stay in your lane, you focus on yourself, you focus on your performance, and if you do that, the performance, you know, shall we say, the medals and whatever it is, like those will take care of itself if you just focus on the performance and
Right.
ensuring that you're performing.
Vasa has been the go-to training tool outside of the pool for over 30 years. Vasa's products are ideal for developing power and proper technique in your swimmer's catch. Add a few Vasa trainers to your pool deck, and it's like adding an extra lane to your swimming pool. Go to vasatrainer.com, use code BREAD at checkout, and get 10% off anything from Vasa. Destro Swim Towers. Gain strength in the water with a tower of power. Save $150 per double swim tower by using code BRETT, B-R-E-T-T, at checkout. DestroMachines.com. Right. I love that, man. That's good advice right there. Listen, breaststroke is many things, and it's evolved in the last 10, 15 years greatly. And you've been a massive contributor to this change in the way that breaststroke is swum. What's the Cameron Vandenberg style of breaststroke? What were you trying to do at the time?
So when I kind of came around, in sort of 2012 was sort of my breakout, obviously with the Olympics. I think I was one of the first guys where, you know, breaststroke has always, or at that point, Kitajima, you know, Hansen, these guys, they were all traditionally focused 200 down to the 100. So the second half of the race obviously was very strong. And then you had the sprinters like me trying to kind of come up, and you know, we go up pretty hard, and at 75 you die. And I think, you know, what I had done is really try to focus on that high frequency to try and be able to train in a certain way that I was now able to go out fast enough that the 200 guys could never catch you, and then still be able to obviously make it home. And that kind of only really clicked for me in 2012, and I was able to sort of be able to finish the race in a very competitive second 50, but be able to go out really, really fast, obviously, with the rest of the guys. And that was all pretty much down to trying to use a little bit less power, for me it was at the time, in the stroke, but maintain a very high frequency. And I think, you know, Peaty took that to the next level in terms of, then what he did was that we were all still kicking, you know, we were using the high frequency, but we were kicking, shall we say, still narrow, but more normal. And I think Peaty came along and was able to narrow the kick even further and able to increase the frequency even further, which then led to obviously this sort of really fast acceleration down to the 57 lows and so on. And so, you know, with that point, the 200 guys, it was impossible for them to now keep up for us, because we were just going out so fast and still being able to maintain the speed at the end of the race. And I think that's kind of the biggest change that's obviously happened. And you see now all the breaststrokers are all following the same, you know, progression. And if you're not able to keep a tempo, you know, of you know, easily 55 to 60 strokes per minute in breaststroke, you know, you can't even think of being competitive anymore in a 100 meter.
Did you have an idea in your head of, okay, here's my best 50 breaststroke time. I want to be my first 50. I want to be this close to it. Like, you know, if my best time's, let's say 27 flat, I want to go out the first 50 in 27.2. So it's obviously, you're just holding back slightly, like you said, just taking a little bit of that power off, but keeping the tempo. Is that kind of what your mentality was?
I used to be very, well, I work very closely on strokes. So, you know, as all breaststrokers, I'm sure we do, you know, you obviously just, you know, you're counting your strokes, but the tactic for me was more to say, all right, I'm going to go out in 18 strokes. And
Oh,
if I'm using my easy speed and, you know, I'm getting good distance per stroke, plus, like I said, it's almost like this superpower of, like, you know, almost like energy overconfidence, and you know, you sort of start to be able to apply, you know, this 90% power, but almost achieve like this, like a 99% speed, just through efficiency, like energy, you know, kind of things clicking at the right moment. And the idea was that, if you could turn out in, 18 strokes or 19 strokes, I knew that I was, going to turn the wall at 27.2 or 27.0 or 26.8, if I was coming in a bit quicker or slower. So at the 50 meters, that turn, or even before at the flags, I already knew how many strokes I was going to turn, roughly what kind of a split I was doing. And then you knew what kind of a shape or what you needed to do in able to get back in order to finish at what time. So, so yeah, that's kind of the way that I would pace my races basically on strokes.
How would you how would you train for that then? Obviously, the style of training is shifting around this time for a lot of people. There's a lot more kind of top end, front end type training balanced with that back end speed. So, is there any type of workouts that you would do that put you in that environment that made you feel really confident? If you did a bunch of these, then I knew that I was hitting my paces.
Yeah, I used to do, you know, um, I guess sort of on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we used to do pretty nasty lactate threshold sets, and you'd be doing, for me obviously at the time, I'd be doing like, let's give example, I might do something like, you know, 3 big
Hmm.
sets broken down, three big sets of like, it's a K, a big block. So it was a
Yep.
3,000 meter breaststroke session of, would be say 5 200s
Hmm.
broken down into like 100 and then 250s. The 100, you'd be going max sort of this easy lactate threshold, and I'd be holding like long course 108 to 110
Hmm.
on 150, and then the next middle 50, well, the first 50 obviously, so that would be going from the 100 to the 150,
Yep.
that I would try and manage at like a 32, and then that would be on about a minute, and then come back again in like 31 30. So the last 50 is the replication almost of like the last 50 of 100 meters, because you're
Oh.
having this high lactate threshold 100 first go out, where you're not killing yourself. Then the middle 50, which is the first 50, obviously you're going through to like managing swimming with lactate to a certain
Hmm.
degree, or
Right.
almost trying to teach your body to swim the lactate out, but still in a pretty decent speed.
Right.
And then that last 50 is like the last 50 of 100. So you'd really try and gun it, and I try to get down to like a 30 point, somewhere
Mm.
around there. And
Right.
that would be on about the 130 to 145, depending on how, where you are in the season, how fit you are. So that you would do effectively 5 times, and that's one set, and you do that whole thing 3 times. So those kind
Three
of sets.
times that. So you're doing 3,000 breaststroke. That's a lot of breaststroke, bro.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, by the end of that, if you're able to try and maintain that kind of a session, it gives you a lot of confidence to know that you're pretty ready to come back on that second 50 of the 100 with going out on a super high pace.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of sets that we used to do. That was quite tough, obviously, but it's a confidence builder, and that's that whole thing. Where if you put in the work, and you're able to rely on that, why would you not be confident to go into that? But then again, to compare it, it's just on who you are as a person. Marco Koch would eat that session up, and go 104s, man, and then he'd be pushing 30 point and 30 point, and you know, like it's very impressive, obviously. But if I had to train with him every single day, my confidence wouldn't be that high. So it's a multitude of factors that obviously contribute to the confidence, and yeah, what you're capable.
Well, nothing to take away from him, but I've seen this too, where you have these guys that are freak trainers, and it doesn't translate into them being the most dominant swimmer in the world. For 10 years straight. I mean, Marco was competitive, but he never he doesn't have the resume that you have in terms of the medals won. So, how is it that you have people like that, and then people like you who are able to then translate it better into competitive racing? What's the difference?
And that is the $1 million question that I think every coach wish they knew. And if you could pick that out, obviously, as a kid at 16 or 18 years old, you'd be able to tell who was going to be the Olympic champion or not. But
Right.
I can't give you the answer, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm with you too. I've been struggling to figure it out myself. You see it a lot, though. You do. You see kids that can train. You're like, oh my god, this guy's going to be unbeatable. And then on race day, it just doesn't come together. You just have, I guess, if you look at the horse racing industry, you'd be the thoroughbred. You'd be the one that on race day picks their head up and prances around the stadium before the race kind of thing. It's like, oh, that's the horse I want to be on today. You know, it's like, yeah, just the racer, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think I had read somewhere where, there was like a study done, and I can't remember if it was on, I think it was on like athletes, on runners or something. And, they took like not well-known athletes, and then and also like like a handful of, shall we say, observers, and they would watch these guys, like their sort of how they would warm up slash, or how they would come into the arena, and into the race and into the block. And there was quite a high hit rate of something like 70 to 80% of selection of people that got to the podium on just purely on the confidence that they exude, obviously, at the arena, at the when they'd walk out
Yep.
for competition or something like that.
Hmm.
And that's kind of, to me, like I say, it just comes back down to, like, it's just this repetitive thing that you can do. And and I think a big thing where that build comes from, which a lot of people don't do sometimes, is those Tuesday Thursday sessions that I'd spoken about. I would treat those as like race days. So I would come into the pool on a Tuesday and a Thursday, like an hour before my session start. I would do stretching, abdominals. I would have eaten a really good lunch. I'd have pre-workout, man. Head in. Like,
Hmm.
my mindset was like, in the warm up, even in the stretching. I wasn't like joking around. Like, people
Yeah.
were. I would be still conversational, but it was quite a serious event for me. So that was almost like pre-programming into my mind at such a young age, that this was like so serious that I could draw on as confidence leading into the swim.
Yeah. Listen, man, I grew up Australian. You're obviously South African, and there's a rivalry, especially in the rugby side of the cricket for sure, but rugby, and the way that I view South Africans are just uh, tough and gritty and gnarly type people. I mean, is that part of your persona? I mean, do you take on that South African persona when you're racing internationally?
I think so. South Africans, I think, are, because we kind of have a tough, not a tough, but in terms of, I think, the facilities here, and the the funding and everything, it's not um, as optimal, I think, as a lot of other countries. You almost have to overcome a lot of different hurdles to actually get to the point where you can race on an international level like that. So from that perspective, it's you build a lot of character just getting there, which then is able to kind of almost battle harden you, I think. And enables, kind of gives you a good solid base to be able to work off of.
Yeah, yeah. I know you're super busy, so I don't want to keep you forever, but I appreciate this time just to catch
No
up.
worries.
Just quickly then, what's your thoughts on Adam Peaty these days? I mean, obviously he's become now the guy, the most dominant guy in breaststroke history, I guess, for now. So, what's your thoughts on him and how he's doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously what he's done is incredible. Guy's, such an athlete, and hats off to him. It's been kind of fun to also see him have a bit of fun with the Strictly Come Dancing, and these things sort of out of the pool that I also really started to enjoy post 2016. So people forget that you're an athlete, but you're also a human, and that you have to enjoy yourself and live a life. So it's nice to have seen that balance, um, because I, like I said, I know how that had felt, where swimming was everything, and you have sacrificed so much, and you become sort of this, when a performance is poor, there's so far to fall, and people can be quite mean. So it's just nice to see him sort of taking that into his
Yeah,
own hands, and enjoy himself. But going forward, obviously it's going to be interesting, because he's like me, sort of getting a little bit older now, but he's got some of the younger guys like Honor coming along, who's swimming exceptionally well. So it's also nice for him, because as it was nice for me to have had Adam to push me at the tail end of my career, and have the competitive nature and competitive fight. You appreciate your competitors after the fact, not in the fact. you
right,
know
right. Yeah.
so it's what makes it memorable and really fun, and those are the kind of battles, and the things that your career is made of.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of last things. A friend of mine and probably a mutual friend of yours, Adrian Crawford, just sent me a text, and he was saying that he said, ask you about passing on the kickboard to Harry. What does that mean?
Yeah, I had this kickboard that I had literally from when I was about 12 years old, and it's actually quite a funny story because the kickboard I went onto this training camp in, like, man, this place in South Africa that is like in the middle of absolutely nowhere,
Mm.
and there was this there was like these really nice kickboards. So I had like the old Speedo kickboard, like the old foam ones, who was like
Yeah.
yellow and black.
Yeah.
And then there was this kickboard that I have now. I think it's called Eyeline, and it's like super, sort of thick and quite
Mm.
buoyant.
Yeah.
And man, it's so much better to kick with these like thick boards. So I, I quite badly, obviously at 12 years old, being a bit silly, I stole this kickboard, and then, just from the age of 12 years old, that was the kickboard that I'd use for the rest of my life, for every single swimming session, for every single race, every single warm up, every single set, stretching
Wow.
sessions. I've had that kickboard, and one or two times I might have almost lost it at a competition, and I had like all of the meet organizers searching for this kickboard. Where was this board? So it's kind of the holy grail of my career, and it's something that I, have held onto and still obviously have. So, Harry's gonna have to work a bit harder for that to come to fruition, that he's able to use it without losing it, because that's like, the biggest thing. I just don't want this thing to be lost. So
Also, Harry wants the board, but you haven't fully given it up yet.
well, I mean, I've under adult supervision, he's allowed to use it. So.
Okay, right. That's awesome, man. Well, listen, I really enjoyed catching up with you and just getting to know, your life beyond swimming. So I appreciate you giving us the time today. And when do you think we'll see you back around a pool again? Have they ever tried to pull you in for commentary, maybe for Paris or anything like that?
Well, I'll tell you one last quick funny story is that so I'm working out obviously a lot now, just because I love it still, and so I'm moving to this the suburb in London called Barnes. Sort of moving out that way, obviously with the kids and something like that. Now it's you sort of need a bit more space, but it's the
Mm.
most beautiful, like, sort of suburb and nice area. And I'm in the gym the other day in Fulham, which is another suburb, and this guy's got a top on it. It says Barnes Masters Swimming Club. So, I go up to him and I say, "Oh, wow, I'm moving to Barnes. That's incredible. Like, where do you guys train?" And they have a private pool at at the school, which is amazing, because then again, like, you have the facility to yourself, and you're not like sharing lanes and so on. And so I ask him, all right, well, I'd love to come for join the team maybe, because I'm going to move there. So he says, okay, well, looks at me and he says, well, he's like, yeah, you look like a strong guy. He's like, you can probably, he's like, yeah, he's like, you might be able to swim though. He's like, but you probably have to come for a trial. So, so I was like, all right, that's fine. So he puts me in touch, and the coach, messaged me back, and then afterwards I see the same guy in the gym like a week later, and he comes to me and he's like, oh my gosh, man, I'm like the laughing stock of the squad, because I feel like he's asking me to come and trial. But anyway, it's I think it's something that I'm definitely going to pick up, and I want to, like I said, I do swim 3 times a week, but like 1,000 meters, nothing serious off the gym. But it's these guys train at like 8 at night, so it's obviously a little bit later. The kids are going to bed, and not saying that I'm gonna take it on full time, but it would be something that I'd love to see if I had the time to commit to, and maybe do a couple like masters meets for fun, and just kind of stick around and see what it's like again. So like I say,
Oh,
1 year out, it was nothing, and now it's like this kind of long lost lover that's piquing my interest, and
uh-oh. Uh-oh.
looking at swimming again. So nothing,
Uh-oh.
like I said, nothing competitive, nothing. Don't think this is a comeback. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. Cameron, nothing competitive, and all of a sudden, Masters World Records are just dropping like flies. Oh,
that's
that's good. No, well, good, man. That's good, and you look super healthy. So that's good that you've kept in shape, and
thanks.
a proud dad too. So congrats on that, man. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. Good luck with everything, and we'll stay in touch. All right.
Thanks a lot, Brett. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Thanks, mate. Take care. Event, heat, lane, name of swimmer, times and places. It's called Swim Nerd Live, and it allows the data and times from your actual scoreboard to be broadcast and viewed in real time on any smart TV, phone, or other device. There are so many things you can do with this software. A very simple and easy to use necessity for any team or facility that is live streaming their meets results. One click on any device and they're watching your swim meet live in real time. Go to swimpractice.com to learn more.